2MinuteEnglish.com, teaching you English in 2 minutes or less.
Hello, dear viewer. Great to see you here. Today we are going to learn about verb tenses. Practice the lesson by repeating the dialogue out loud after hearing it once. To increase your vocabulary a bit, remember to check out the vocabulary section at the end. Let's get started now.
Hello, James. Let's talk about tenses in English today.
Okay, verb tenses are used to describe the time of an action, whether it is in the present, the past, or the future.
For example, when we talk about current news or actions, we use present tense. What tense do we use when talking about events that are over?
We use the past tense to talk about events which are completed, and we use the future tense to talk about events that haven't happened yet.
There are also variations of these three verb tenses to indicate if the action is a continuing one, or if it is a past action that influences the present, or if it is a future action that will continue for a while, and so on.
So, how do we make the verb tenses?
Tenses are created by modifying a verb. For example, the verb call. Can you think of the present, past, and future tenses for this verb?
Sure I can. Present tense is call, past tense is called, and future tense is will call.
Please call your brother is present tense. It shows that the action is now.
I called my mother yesterday shows that the action happened before now.
I will call my sister tomorrow shows that the action will take place in the future.
English has regular verbs and irregular verbs. Regular verb tenses are all made the same way. The present tense is the verb without anything added. To make the past tense, add ed to the present tense. So, the past tense of called is called, the past tense of walk is walked, and the past tense of exercise is exercised.
How do we make the future tense then?
Just add will to the present tense of the verb. I will walk to the store tomorrow morning. He will exercise 3 times a week.
Let's see some example dialogues which will help us understand regular verb tenses.
I learned to ski on my trip to Utah.
Well, James, it sounds like you enjoyed your trip.
It was a long drive, but my friends and I listened to music all the way.
Did you ski on the difficult trails?
Yes, and it scared me.
You will learn to enjoy it, I'll bet. I love outdoor sports.
Probably.
Hello, Andrea. Today's lesson is about present tense and how to apply present tense to verbs.
Hello, Ellie. If I'm right, the present tense of a verb shows what's happening now, in the present.
You're absolutely right, Andrea. The present tense talks about what's happening now.
Can you tell us how verbs are modified to show present tense?
Whenever you're talking about yourself or the person you're speaking to, the verb doesn't change. Just use it as it is. For example, I drink tea. You drink coffee. Here, drink is the verb, and it's not modified for present tense. This is true for both singular and plural forms.
We all drink coffee is correct when I talk about many people because it includes me. Talk is a verb in present tense that I used when I said I talk.
So when the subject is I, you, or we, the present tense of the verb is just the verb with no change. When talking about a single or other person or object, though we usually add an S to the verb, in general, verbs that end in the S are singular verbs.
Isn't that the opposite of the way nouns work?
Yes, it is. Nouns from plurals by adding S on the end. Verbs with an S on the end are singular. My daughter loves swimming. Here, love is the verb modified to loves because I'm talking about my daughter.
Then plural verbs don't have an S on the end, right?
That's right. I want to give my parents something special on their 30th anniversary. I want to show them how important they are to me. Want is a present tense verb.
Remember that with I and you and we, the verb sounds like a plural verb because it doesn't have an S on the end. I suggest you give them a homemade gift. My parents love things like that. In this case, love is a plural verb to go with the plural subject of parents.
I'll think about it. Your husband practices law, doesn't he?
Yes, he works for a small law firm.
Practices and works are singular verbs in present tense in our sentences. We can tell they're singular verbs because they end with an S. We use singular verbs because the subject of the sentence is singular, and not I or you or we.
Is that all about present tense?
Just one last point. We've been talking about regular verbs, those that form the present tense or form plurals all the same way. English also has irregular verbs. A common example is the verb to be. Its present tenses are is, are, and am. I am, you, and we, and they are, and he, she, or it is.
Let's listen to some sample conversations now.
Daisy, do you paint pictures of people?
I like painting people, but I feel like I'm not so good at it. Ted paint people better, and I paint landscapes better. But we both paint very well.
Practice makes perfect. I hope you keep trying.
I will. I want to be a professional artist one day.
I know you'll succeed. The art teacher says you're very good.
Hello all, sorry I'm late. The traffic delayed me.
Hello, Eric. You arrived just in time. We just started the lesson.
Oh, good. I know that today's lesson is about how to use verbs in past tense.
That's right. Past tense is used to indicate actions, events, and existence in the past.
So when we talk about actions that are finished, we can use past tense. I said, the traffic delayed me. So I talk about something that happened in the past.
That's a good example, Eric. You also use talked as the past tense to talk.
I know that regular verbs become past tense by adding ed to the present tense, like adding ed to talk made it into talked, a past tense verb.
Like use became used, and arrive became arrived in your statement. Of course, if the verb ends in e, like use and arrive, we don't need to add another e, just the d.
I suspected you would say that. Thanks, Claudia. Do you know about one more rule?
No, which one?
If there is a y at the end of the verb, you use the suffix ied and not ed. For example, carry becomes carried, apply becomes applied, and so on.
Yeah, you're right, Eric. I think we talked enough about past tense now. Shall we listen to some sample conversations?
Sure. Why are you so tired?
I arrived back from my trip last night. I traveled the entire day.
You toured New Orleans, didn't you? You look very sleepy.
I napped for an hour, but I'm still tired.
Hello everyone. Today's lesson will be a discussion about future tense and how to use it.
Future tense is used for actions or events that are expected to happen in the future.
That's absolutely right, Susan. It's also used to indicate a state of being in the future, where a person might be or where an object will be in the future.
I noticed that you use will and might to indicate the future. Will is the most common way of expressing future tense, but we can add either will or might before the verb to indicate future tense.
That's right, Susan. Here's an example. I'll go to the bakery tomorrow.
You indicated a future action by using will go. Have you ordered cake?
Yes, it's for a friend's birthday party. What are you going to do tomorrow, Susan?
I'm going to clean my apartment tomorrow. It's been weeks since I cleaned. We use going to along with the verbs do and clean to indicate actions in the future.
Well, you've had a busy schedule for the last month. Shall I help you? Shall is also used to indicate an action in the future. It's like will, but it suggests uncertainty or unsurety.
That's okay, Tanya. You might be busy with your friend's birthday plans. I will manage. Thanks anyway.
Okay, but if I come back early, I'll drop by your place.
Okay, I've noticed that with sentences like, we start class at 11 a.m. or the train leaves at 9 p.m. Now we're talking about actions in the future by using verbs in the present tense.
Yes, you're right. Sometimes when we know the context or when it's obvious that the action is in the future, the verbs are used in the present tense, even though they're about a future action.
So I can say we can start class at 11 a.m. because we both know that we're talking about at what time a future class starts. Similarly, when I say the train leaves at 9 p.m. and I'm talking about it at 6 p.m., it's obvious that the action is in the future.
Exactly. Now, shall we listen to some sample conversations? Are you going to sign up for the college fun trip?
Not too sure.
I think my mom might not be okay with it.
Come on, it's only going to happen once a year. You can't miss it, and there are faculty going too.
I will talk to my mom about it, and then I will call you.
Influence. To have an effect on someone or something. People get influenced by you when they see you do something they admire. Indicate. To indicate is to point or show something. Indicate is also to say something indirectly. That is, when you give clues, hoping the other person would understand what you're saying.
Irregular. When something is unusual or not ordinary, it's called irregular. It has a negative connotation and is often used to talk about things that are not as they are supposed to be. Trail. When you go hiking or walking through a jungle or a wild area, you might follow a trail. A trail is a track or a beaten path that is made when a lot of people walk the same path.
Modify. To modify means to make changes for it. For example, you might want to modify the look of your room when you get bored with it.
Homemade. Something that is made or prepared at home. It involves the maker's own efforts. Don't we all like eating homemade cakes? Professional. A professional is someone who has skills and makes use of those skills to earn a livelihood. You may be a doctor or an actor by profession.
Prefer. Prefer means to choose something instead of something else. It also means to like something better in comparison to another thing. Many people prefer coffee to tea, but some people prefer tea over coffee.
Impromptu. Impromptu means sudden or unplanned. When you decide to do something without any pre-planning, it's called impromptu. You might take an impromptu trip, go for an impromptu movie, or sing an impromptu song.
Existence. Existence is a state of being. Something that occurs is said to be existing. Suspect. Suspect means to have doubts about something or someone. When we believe someone be guilty, it means that we are suspecting them. Relief. Relief means to be free from fear, stress, or discomfort. A person who is free from a burden is relieved.
Schedule. A schedule is a plan for carrying out a procedure. It's usually in writing. It contains a list of events and the time in which they are going to happen. Notice. Notice means to observe something carefully or to pay attention. Don't you notice a lot of things happening around you each day?
Context. Context are the circumstances that clarify the meaning of any word or sentence. We can say a thing in many different contexts. Section is a part or a segment of anything. It can be an article, a book, or a cake. You can use it to refer to a portion of almost anything.